Welcome, everyone. This is part one of two parts because we've got Dr. Eddie back and back to back. This is the end of January 2026, and he'll be joining the first week of February. But Dr. Eddie has a topic he's going to share, and then we're going to answer questions, but then also look at previous questions if we have time. So what do you have for us today?
Well, what I have for you today, not the topic that I originally sent out yet today, and we're going to have a small group live today, Tammy, because I did not get a chance to send something out till early this morning. And I also sent you the questions that I went through. But no, my
I
topic,
better look at that.
right,
Yes.
my
Okay. Thanks.
my topic is based on our last webinar that we had. We got to the end of the webinar, and I was talking about the idea again of why these men do this and the fact that sometimes it's really difficult to understand that, and we got some pretty sharp responses to it. So there was this one question, and that would changed all of it today. I
It's
started
all
looking at the
good.
question, and this is the question. I struggle to understand my husband choosing to act out throughout the marriage when I see all the times he could have chosen something else. He knew what he was doing was wrong and hurtful. How do I understand this? And I think that as clinicians, we have not done a good enough job of helping those who've been betrayed to come to realize what's going on here. The other aspect of it is this, is that understanding, because one thing that that the question I get asked so often is, why did he do this? Why did he do this? Okay. Well, when we answer the why question, it often sounds as though we're making an excuse for the behavior, but we're not. We're not excusing the behavior. All we're doing is explaining these are the factors that were involved in why this guy did this. Now, how can we be sure that this is accurate? Well, you know what? Ever since Patrick Carn back in the early 80s began doing the research about sex addiction, which we now refer to mostly along the lines of problematic sexual behaviors, there have been research done with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of men throughout the world to better understand what goes on here, that a person would get involved in a relationship, sometimes get married, have children, commit themselves, but yet still do things such as, be so involved with pornography that it's something they obsess about, or visit massage parlors, go on do multiple affairs, all these different things. How could this be possible? And what we've done is we have come up with the rationales. We now understand why men and women, okay, do what they do. And what I want to do today is I'm going to walk you through this because again, it's in depth. It's also it takes the ability to be able to take a step back from the hurt and pain you're feeling for a moment to just look at it. And in no way, shape, or form are we minimizing or saying, well, because he was wounded, you shouldn't feel so wounded. No. And if anybody tells you that, they are absolutely incorrect. So, anyway, understanding is not the same thing as excusing a behavior, right? That's not what it is. So you asked again the question, if he knew it was wrong and he knew it would hurt me, why didn't he choose something else? Well, now, with that question, what it is like you're looking at the individual and you're saying, okay, it looks like he's making a lot of poor, conscious, moral decisions. That's what it looks like. That makes sense. However, for these individuals, all right, the need to have some sort of a emotional bond that was limited, they didn't have much of it, or was non-existent. And so therefore their behaviors, which started at a very young age, when they came up with solutions on how to distract themselves, are nothing more than coping strategies to deal with this subconscious emotional discomfort that they have. Okay? Now stay with me. Stay with me. Again, it started as a child, and he did it to avoid, to survive emotional pain. Go back to my story, right? Again, father died when I'm 5, mother had a nervous breakdown. I get shipped out to these relatives I don't know. I'm there for a year. Nobody's talking to me about what's going on. All of a sudden, boom, I'm back at home with my siblings and my mother. There's no father. Nobody's saying anything. Mom's really busy. She has to go work 2 jobs to support the family. 2 older sisters don't want to be dealing with a 6-year-old. Go to your room and play. Go to your room and play. I'm alone. I'm isolated most of the time. I can't even tell you about my baby brother, who is 4 years younger
Mm,
than me. I have very few memories of him at all, right? So, as a child, okay, you could only imagine it must have been, and even for me to imagine, it must have been a very sad existence. But in order not to make it sad, I did a lot of imagination. I really made a lot of games up in my own head because I didn't have that many toys back then. And of course, we didn't have things like internet, radio. I had no
mhm,
TV in my room, anything
mhm,
like that. So I had to entertain myself. And but with that, again, I don't have a friend until I'm 10 years old.
mm,
I grew up very alone and isolated. I grew up believing people don't really care. Why? Because they're not there for me. They're busy. And you know what? Now, as an adult, you can see it and you understand it. But as a child, you don't. And the men who deal with addiction, all addiction, women who deal with addiction, they all have very similar wounds. Okay. And when a person carries these unresolved wounds, shame, not, feeling wanted, feeling abandoned, rejected, feeling emotionally neglected, feeling powerless, okay, feeling helpless. Their nervous system, all right, your nervous system is constantly scanning, trying to find some sort of relief. That's what it's looking for. Now, we make the mistake, and I've even seen it in some of the questions that we have. But if he thought about this, if he's knowing and understanding the depth of the pain, see, we mistaken that we are acting, we ask, how does their brains allow them to make such poor decisions? But it's not the brain that's driving those decisions, it's the autonomic nervous system. Fear, which again, for me as a child alone, there was a great deal of fear. I don't remember that fear, but it was fear now that I think about it, right? That fear sits in my autonomic nervous system. And there will be times, my wife says, hey, I'm going somewhere for a few days, and immediately there's a jolt that comes over me.
mm,
And then I'm like, okay, yeah, she has to go somewhere. I'm fine because I processed all of this. There are many guys,
mhm,
they haven't processed any of it. They haven't figured out that, oh my God, that would bring back feelings of abandonment. And now she's gone, and my autonomic nervous system is getting out of whack and gravy. And all of a sudden, ooh, I go back on the computer, I'm looking at pornography. Had no intention to do that, but that's where he winds up going with that. So when what we're trying to do when our nervous system gets highly activated, we find ways to seek to soothe it. And most of those ways are not good ways, they're destructive. Add to that, again, we're talking about bonding, the lack of bonding, right? Nobody bonds fully with us, or they bond in a very, in a way that's not, you know, as nurturing as we should have. So when we don't have that bonding, the emotional bonding, when we come across sex and we have the first encounter from a sexual standpoint, whether we see something when we're younger or then we come across porn, it's like a fast acting anesthetic for that emotional pain. It just numbs us out. It just numbs us out. And and again, not because it's logical, not because it's loving, not because it's really moral, it's because it works. Almost, almost works. It works temporarily. And then we have to come back to reality. A child, a young teen, an adolescent, a young teen who have to live in a environment, whether it's caused at home or by peers, that causes that autonomic nervous system to be activated. If he does not or she does not find a way to comfort that, depression and real serious anxiety issues are going to set in, and behaviors such as cutting will also happen. There'll be ways, or maybe even suicidal thought that are going on. I'm going to stay with men for a moment because men who act out, what they learned early in life is emotions are not safe. Okay. If I share my emotion, somebody might mock me, tease me, belittle me, whatever. So you just don't do it. You know, my emotional needs are not going to really be met from a relational standpoint. If I'm vulnerable, it's going to lead to somebody again shaming me or rejection. That's not a big deal. I don't know why you're bringing it up. So I must create comfort for myself. That's what I do. And instead of learning because somebody's there to help me, and which would have been wonderful for me as a child, when I'm hurting, I go to someone for guidance, for direction, for comfort, reassurance. Instead, we learn when we are hurting, I need to numb myself out. Pornography, sexual behaviors, cutting, maybe drinking at the age of 12, smoking a cigarette, things like that. That's all numbing behaviors. Because what we do is seeking three different things. One, we're seeking the dopamine relief, okay, and relief from it. But again, it's only temporary. We're seeking to obtain control. See, that's the other thing. We have no control in those environments, or maybe limited control, but we don't have one. So here, unlike a relationship, when it comes to acting out never says no to me. Never says no. I don't need to be emotionally present to act out. And that's why that helps. And then finally, it's escaping the shameful feeling that we would have, because what will happen is going and acting out again, it removes those feelings of maybe feeling rejected, feeling powerless, feeling small. They're gone for a little while for that. So So here's the conflict, the inner conflict, right? That I know it's wrong, but I need relief, right? So many betrayed partners, they think this is the way we think. Ooh, you know, I think I'll look at pornography. Hmm, looking at porn, not really the right thing to do, and I think it's gonna hurt her. Yeah, I don't know. And then we make the choice, and then we engage in the behavior. That's not what happens most of the time. Most of the time, it is an emotional trigger that seems very much like something from the past, although I'm just not equating it. All I know, the feelings, there are a lot of feelings in me that are not comfortable. I become flooded with these emotions, and now there's this urge, this need for relief. And now I go back to what the autonomic nervous system had taught me. What is that coping strategy that will give me that relief? And even if I'm in a planning stage, okay, because it's there and I have to plan it, I have to plan for what it's going to take to get me there. And it may be days away, maybe weeks away, but just knowing that there's a plan calms things down. And then we have the behavior. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what the hell did I do? And maybe some guys might go into oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. I stop, I'm done. And then, of course, they repeat it for that. You know, and this is where, again, I think we struggle to communicate with those of you who are really hurting, who've been devastated by all of this. But the behavior that is being conducted by a large majority of these men and women is not a desire for someone else. It is not a desire to hurt you. It is not a sense that they don't care. What's driving it is emotional dysregulation, an attachment wound, the pattern that we created, these coping strategies that we created to help us deal with these feelings that we have, and then of course the shame cycle that comes in. We are not driven when we're in our addictive states. We are not driven by rational thinking. We are driven by raw emotions. And that's why with the inner child model, I came up with the concept of what I feel versus what is real to help people slow everything down and let them walk through so that they go to a place that you think we're at, which is like, oh, I want to make a decision. Ooh, that's really not the right decision to make. Okay, why is that? Why do I? But see, I add something in. Why do I want to make that decision? And then we look at all the emotional pain. Then we throw out everything that's an assumption. We throw out everything that's an internal belief, negative belief about ourselves. And we throw out everything that's based on fear. And we bring them down. And what we're left with, that's reality. And it's like, oh, you know what? I can handle that reality. No, I don't need to go look at porn. That's not what I really need right now. See, you go down to the idea where you say, well, he could have chose something else, or she could have chose something else. But for most of you, you're looking at this through the lens of a secure attachment, or an attachment that is, maybe there's a wound, but it's not that severe of a wound. So what does the secure attachment lens look like? It's like, okay, when I'm hurting, I'm going to reach out for somebody. Okay. When something threatens my relationship, I'm going to try to protect it. And when I know I'm doing something that hurts someone I love, I'm going to stop it. That's what people with a secure attachment does. For those who have attachment wounds, remember the wiring was put in place as young as 6, from very young age for many of them. When I become overwhelmed, I gape. When I feel shame, I hide. When I feel powerless, and that's a big one, when I feel powerless, I seek intensity, I seek stimulation, or I seek to numb out. That's the difference. That's what's going on. So now, this is the hardest truth of all of this, okay? Acting out is rarely about choosing pleasure over a spouse. That's not what it is. What it is choosing relief over pain. It feels like survival. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm doing this to survive, even though I'm destroying something that I value very, very much. So if I wrap this up, it's got a lot longer than I thought it was going to go. What does healthy understanding look like? Okay. Well, healthy understanding will say that his behavior, well, I'm talking about your understanding, you have a healthy understanding. It would be his behaviors came from emotional wounds, shame, and bad coping strategies. He feels compulsive, he feels overwhelmed, and he feels driven by unresolved emotional distress. And he does not have the tools to be able to learn to emotionally regulate himself. That's what you, if you had healthy understanding of it, would come to be. But let me add this in because I know most of you are ready to sit and send out that, you know, little,
Love
note
note.
to us, right? And you
Yeah.
know what? Before you do that, before you hit the send button, let me add this. But at the same time, in order for you to feel any of that, in order for you to understand that, he has to be responsible for getting help. He, and again, I'm using he, but it's he or he is responsible for protecting the relationship moving forward. You were still harmed. You were still harmed, and your trauma is still real and valid, and you have every reason in the world to be angry, upset, hurt, devastated, and such. And he needs to be there where he can understand what your wounds are, and he needs to be there so that he can help you to process through those. See, you don't heal because you understand more about your partner and why they're dysfunctional. You heal because your trauma is being noticed, it's being validated, and it's being responded to consistently over time. Understanding him is useful for you, but it's not what heals you. It's not. And for him, the recovery should be to see you that one, he validates your pain without being defensive. He doesn't try to pull you through your pain. There's no timeline. He doesn't use his trauma as an excuse for what happened. He shows consistency in his behavioral change. Not that he's going to be perfect. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and you say to me, "Go, well, the best baseball players hit like 300." And
Strive for better than that.
yeah, and even he realized that. He was like, okay. Yeah, but I think here we're going to try to hit 900. 9 out of 10 times you're going to get it right. And when you don't get it right, you're going to be quick to pick it up, point it out, and make a correction on it. That's what we're going to be doing with that. He has to be responsible for helping you to be able to find your soul again. But most importantly, he has to be there to help protect you moving forward. So, Tammy, not sure if it helps or not, but that's what I got for you today.
I love it, and I want to first of all honor you for being vulnerable and sharing your story, and like
Thank
it
you.
makes me hurt to think of you as a little child. And I was thinking when you said, I typed a bunch of things, but like you were like, the world isn't safe. People aren't there for you. And I
Yeah.
suspect that you also internalize, and there's something wrong with me that they won't show up with
Oh,
me.
do you know how much time I spent? I remember I had a full-size bed, which got kind of cool for a little kid.
Hmm.
I spent so much time under the covers,
Mm,
just sitting
mm,
underneath the covers. That's it.
mm.
A lot of time.
That that's a lot of. I mean, that is
Even now today,
a escape.
when
Yeah,
I sleep, my blanket,
yeah,
I hold it up to my cheek.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so yes, the maladaptive coping mechanisms, looking for other things. You also he could have chosen something else, and I'm like, lots of addicts do. They've got a whole array of things that they can use. And yes, so sex or porn, which goes back to sex and porn addiction isn't about sex or porn. It's about, just like as you were saying, it's about that escape from
Right.
the emotional pain,
Yep.
and then it's the whole cycle of like, I did that and I feel better. Oh, but now I feel bad, and now those bad feelings come in. So then, it's just it's the insanity. I
Right.
share often with partners, you will never understand how he's thinking because you would never think that way. And that's why addicts need to be in a group with other addicts where I mean, we're going like, yeah, we
Yeah.
get it. We would choose the
Right.
same ridiculous thing,
Yeah.
but you talked about healing. And yes, in a coupleship, if he is, and we're using pronouns, if he's doing the work and really starting to change, that does shift things. But I want to also throw the lifeline out there for partners. If he's not choosing to, that support and understanding, you can find that in your tribe of people that you create, so that you have that, whether you stay in the relationship or not. So,
Yeah.
and all of these things that he's talking about, like no addict, in the first little bit of time is going to be able to show up, and yeah, I mean, it's a hot mess,
Right.
for a while. So this is something to strive for and have a vision that, if we're willing to do the work, yes, things can radically change. One more thing, and then we'll go to questions. But when you talked about that immediate reaction when your wife is, tells you going on a trip, I thought, and I had that feeling. I get it, and that's decades in recovery for both of us, and we still get that feeling, but it's that quick feeling, and then we go, "Yep, we're shifting." So this is not like, well, if I just do all the work, then I'm never going to feel those moments.
No, we'll always
Mm.
feel it. I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, stimuli, reaction. Like, oh,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
to do
Yeah.
that. But one other point here,
Please.
as I talked about this, and especially when I talked about the fact of what would it be like to have healthy understanding, okay, that your behavior comes from wounds, he's been compulsive, overwhelming, he may not have the tool to regulate
Hmm.
himself. All right, those only work if you're dealing with someone who's doing their work, who's trying to change all of that. And if he's not looking or she's not doing that, then you got a totally different case than what I'm talking about here. See, what I'm
Yes.
trying to do, and you people have heard me say this, Tammy, you've heard me say this, is I am really wanting those of you who have been stuck in the cesspool of betrayal trauma for so long to finally be able to break free and take back your life. To take your life back, whether with him or without him, whether with her, without her, take it back because life is way too short to give it up. So,
I agree. So let's go to our current questions first.
Okay.
How does an addict deepen their addiction, separate healthy sexuality from unhealthy sexuality? I'm 25 and have been using since before puberty, and it's incredibly difficult to find this fine and often invisible line between what's healthy and unproductive and regressive and addict thinking. How do I begin to solve this? I don't have a CSAT that I can speak with one on one. So
Okay. Well, that might be a place to start too. But you know what? The line is not that fine. It is really not invisible. There is a very clear line between what is healthy and what is unhealthy sexuality. When it comes to a couple, the rule usually is what both people agree with, what both people say, this is good for me, this is okay, good. If one party not happy, if one party is uncomfortable, then you know what? That's something that cannot be part of that relationship. I think one, being in a support group would help you. There are several wonderful books out there. Judy Slattery has a great book. She used to be on Focus on the Family. She has a wonderful book. Tammy, what other kind of resources can you think of for this?
and I'm going to make a little assumption here because I see probably a female name, so I'm going to speak to this a little bit like that. Because it changes things. For male addicts, we have more resources because men tend to come to our work groups and things. We've tried to have them for females, but there is a female drop-in group on Tuesday nights on free. So that's a place to start. The Sex Addiction 101 book and workbook can be used. That we don't have a workbook for females, or I mean a work group for females, but we do. You can use those materials. But I also heard, I've been doing this since puberty. Okay, so I'm wondering, and you're 25, and I'm glad you're here and asking. But I'm wondering about, even if you're in a relationship, if you're not in a relationship, can you put pause on, like we talk to addicts often about taking, a 90 day, and just kind of resetting and doing the work of what am I doing? Why am I looking for this? What am I hoping for? And whether it's food or alcohol or sex or porn, whatever. What am I seeking out of this? Am I emotionally dysregulated and hoping that it will help fix me? Because anything that I'm using externally, I need to check my motives. I love what Dr. Eddie says. I quote him all the time about slow everything down. Healthy dating plans, if you're a single person, and again, I'm not making an assumption, just sharing. But Dr. Rob talked again recently on one of the webinars about, he had a sponsor and he had a group of people and he had a therapist, and it was like a dating plan, like an abstinence plan and then a dating plan. And, the accountability of if I'm going to date, it was like, the ugly diners and not a romantic place, like no cozy, like it was this whole plan and accountability of checking in with a sponsor before going on the date and then checking in afterwards. Separate cars, I mean, like there's so many things that you can do. If you are not already involved in 12 step, I can't stress that enough. That ends up being a community of people. When I got into recovery, I happened to be young and single, and I got connected with people that were healthy and looking to do the same thing. So, and it's making sure that I'm, we would make sure we were in threes and stuff. So we set up safety plans, for all of those things so that we were able to move forward on a recovery journey. So I'm so glad you're here. Tons of previously recorded webinars and things like that. If you email TAMI at Seeking Integrity, if you've got some certain topics that you'd like, or if you want a referral to a CSAT, tell me where you're located and I'll help you find,
Yeah.
some options in your area. So, but
There was also that Dirty Girl ministry. They changed it now. Now it's called sherecovery.com. You might want to check that out too. A lot of stuff
I have
there.
not heard of that one, but I'm going
You've
to.
never heard of Dirty Girl
I
Ministry?
I see She Recovery Porn
Crystal,
Addiction Support.
yeah,
Hmm.
Crystal Day. She's done a lot of work. She's been around a long, long time. Now they changed it to She Recovery,
I just pulled it up on
recovery.com.
my other screen, so
Yeah,
I'll check
yeah, take
into
a
that
look at
more
it.
later. Yeah. Okay, so then the next one, Dr. Eddie, is thank you so much for that explanation. I'm a partner in recovery for a little over a year, and this was the best explanation I've ever heard. You said that even if they only are in the planning stage, and I was thinking, yep, you're in the bubble, they will get some relief from the
Oh,
emotional
yes,
pain.
absolutely. Not some, they'll get a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's most of it. Honestly,
Oh,
for lots of
the
people, the
chase,
acting out is the
right? The
letdown.
chase, the hunt. And
Yes.
sometimes you get to it, it's like,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's the letdown. Is there a point in an addict's recovery where he can learn to just be satisfied with the planning and not do the acting out? Oh, that feels dangerous. Or
yes,
is it
yes.
more of a learning to handle your emotions before you get to the planning? Yes, I like
There
that
you
one better.
go.
Yeah.
That's better,
Yeah,
Megan.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
better. Yeah, we
yeah.
don't want them to be
No.
planning and then
Yeah,
say, okay, I'm not going to act on it. No,
yeah.
this is the key.
Hmm.
That last line that you just put in there, Megan, that's the key. He has to learn to regulate his emotions. And again, if you haven't gotten it yet, I have 22 techniques for doing that. I have pressure point, different things, inner child model at gmail.com, inner child model at gmail.com. Be happy to send that to you. It's something that has to be practiced every day, 3 times a day so that you learn, okay, what is it like? Oh, this is the window of tolerance. This is what I should be. Because let me tell you, you know what? We don't realize that we are emotionally dysregulated because we've been like this our entire life. So no, I'm okay. Nothing wrong with me, but we're not. No problem. So, but that
I
point that you made there, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, and I love that you said that because like I lived in chaos and like that was so normal feeling for me. As things got to have more serenity, like it was like, whoa, this is so different, and felt a little boring, I will admit at first. But now I strive for that. I don't tolerate the chaos anymore. So, it
Yeah,
really is a shift in everything.
right. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so the next one, betrayed partner a few years out. What if it was entitlement with long-term relationship and he insisted he did nothing wrong?
All right. Well, the fact if he's insisting he did nothing wrong, okay, you have a much bigger problem there. Okay, somebody who's in denial, and I mean, the fact entitlement is a major issue. Okay, if you, in case you don't know, when it comes to the inner child model, one of the kids is the entitled child. Okay, and he's not entitled so much because he feels he's better than everyone else. He's entitled because of everything that went on around him that caused him pain and distress. And he's like, you know what? I don't need to deal with this anymore. And I'm not going to deal with it anymore. I'm going to do what I want to do. Nobody's going to control me. I'm going to control everything. I'm going to control my life. But then it doesn't even matter that it could be inconveniencing or hurting other people. So the idea that he insists he did nothing wrong is showing somebody who he's not being open-minded right now. He's still locked into that inwardly focused attitude, and he's still locked in that entitlement mode, and that has to break.
So I'm putting, somebody asked for my email address and I did put it in there.
Okay.
And then I just put, and I wish I could have got like let me back up. The healthy boundaries work group started on a week ago. So there's been 2 weeks of that one. So it's too late to join that. That would have been a great group. But the betrayed partner group starts next week on the 4th. And I would invite you to do that because yeah, like as soon as there's that digging in the heels and denial of like, you know, is it entitlement? I don't know. I'm sure it feels like that, but it sure feels like denial. Because if I didn't do anything wrong, then I don't have to do anything to deal with it. So I can just sweep it under the rug. but you know,
Right.
I mean, it was damaging to the relationship. It hurt you. So that's, that's not accurate. I love Debbie McCrae's, when she goes, the story I'm telling myself is that you're in denial about the damage your behaviors have done to our relationship, and therefore I'm going to whatever. She's really good at it. I'm getting better though, because I used to have to think about all the different things, so look at he's giving you a lot of data of what he's not willing to do, which is anything to
Yeah,
take responsibility. So what are you going to do to take care of yourself, regardless of what he's doing or not doing?
exactly. Absolutely.
Okay, we don't have any open questions. So do you want to hit some of the previous
Sure.
ones?
Let's
Okay,
do it. There's quite
all
a
right.
few.
I know I'm looking. Okay, so on the ones that okay, so then there was one that I have decided to move on. Is that the one we should go with?
Yeah.
Okay. I have decided to move on from my marriage. This is from December's, but not yet ready to move out. And financially, I won't be in this position for another 6 to 12 months to maintain stability for our kids that are 10 and 8. The marital home will be sold. We are not in imminent harm, and he is being very good and reliable co-parent and household partner right now. I would like to get things set up and then inform my partner 3 to 4 months out from the exact date I will be able to move out. My therapist agrees. My partner has previously been suicidal and not in active recovery for the last nearly year. Discovered this last month and set and communicated this to him that I would not be in a relationship with him if he was not in active recovery program. Is it out of integrity to not inform him of my decision right now? I worry for his functionality, our safety, as his unhealed coping is shut down. My therapist also knows him and does think it is a good approach.
Okay. Um, I'm not normally one to put, pass the buck, but I don't know enough about this circumstance. And if you sit here and you talk about, that your partner has been previously suicidal, um, and again, not in active recovery, doesn't really have an outlet to be able to reach out to you. Um, I'd be a little worried about his functionality personally. And especially if his coping strategy is to shut down. I mean, because what's happening, he's being told, hey, guess what? You're not going to be living with your, wife and your kid. And the marriage is, going to be ending soon. Your therapist, who knows him, thinks it's a good approach. I'm going to yield to your therapist at this point. I don't think that, again, that I have enough information. I have enough, I'm close enough to this that I could be able to give you, a different answer. I think I'm leaning more, but I would say this, I would be seeing if you could get in there to meet with your therapist, if your therapist knows him, to be able to talk about this, talk about it together, the three of you, to make sure that way then your therapist can get a better idea of how he be handling it or how will he handle it. That's what I'd be doing.
Yeah, and I hear the question is it out of integrity? And I don't, and I
I
have a big thing with integrity, but I don't feel it's out of integrity. I feel like you're making a plan and you're working on making a plan that is the safest for everyone, for you and your children, but also for him as you move forward. So I hear a lot of thinking about how to do this as safe as possible, rather than I'm going to run and tell him right now, and then we're going to be in all of this, chaos or whatever. So and I'm with Dr. Eddie, that your therapist is, the boots on the ground, and it feels like that person would be, you know, best able to support, you
yeah.
both and all that. So
Yeah, I mean, because again, if he's somebody who, if you're giving him more and more time to sit and think about it and such, that could make it a lot worse for him. But also, you spring it on him, and then that could be just as equally destructive. So you
yeah,
got, I think it's better to kind of walk him through. He knows it's going to be ending, and therefore maybe walking with him about what will that ending look like, how are we going to move on, what kind of help should he be soliciting now to help himself.
You said he knows it's going to be ending, and I'm like, there's this thing called denial. I'm like, I could see the ability to
True,
compartmentalize that and go like, no,
true.
no, 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 no. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
true.
there might be a little tiny part of him that realizes it, or he may have a better comprehension. But I'm like, oh, denial's good. Okay, so then somebody says, I asked a previous question about fantasy. I'm a betrayed partner. My most recent D-Day was in September. Previous question, you talk about fantasy in your article. This was from probably last September, so it might have been August. Do you think fantasy has a place within a marriage for a sex addict? Is there a healthy way to fantasize? Comment, I presume, speaking about sexual fantasy. That was me
Yeah,
commenting.
right,
I
right,
added
right.
that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I assume that's what they're talking about,
yeah,
sexual
yeah,
fantasy.
yeah.
So if the question is, and help me here, Tammy,
Hmm.
is she saying that the two of us together are doing a sexual fantasy? Is that
Um,
what, or
in a
well, because
marriage for
for a sex addict to be
hmm.
fantasizing on their own, no, that's not healthy. Um, the two of them, if they're like role playing, is that what
Oh, I
this?
hadn't picked up on that, but I could make a case for that because within a marriage for a sex addict. So it depends. So let's answer it both ways. So if it's role play for the couple, what are
And
your
I think
thoughts? And then if it's
I
the
don't.
sex addict hanging on to fantasy.
Yeah, if it's role playing for the couple are both in agreement that this is something that they both will enjoy, that it feel that it does feel safe to each of them, then I don't think there's any problem with that. Um, However, if it's just the person with the sex addiction who's doing fantasy on their own, that goes against what we're trying to do. We're trying to, get them to reduce the intensity of fantasy. And when fantasy does pop up, that they were able to grab hold of it and be able to, you know, remove it by one being able to determine why is it here today? Okay. And then once they do remove it, what thought and imagery are they going to replace it with?
So now let's flip to the live question. I find myself wanting to treat my addict partner the same way they treated me to show them how much it hurts. But at the same time, I don't want to act like that. So I'm having conflicting feelings. How do I resist this urge and act in a healthy way without being passive and being walked all over and accepting abuse behaviors from them?
Well,
Great question.
again, I applaud you for your honesty
Hmm.
for that. I mean, I think that there are quite a few women who feel the way you do.
Hmm.
There are very few women who will admit the way
Hmm.
they feel that way. Um, I believe that your desire, the feeling to have him hurt the way you, I think they're natural. Okay, I mean, we call it revenge. That's what it is, revenge.
Hmm.
However, seeking revenge ultimately brings you nothing of value. May give you a temporary high, but over time, it's going to wear you down and it's going to make you feel like you're saying right now. It's like I don't really want to do this. All right. Now you say, how do I resist this urge and act in a healthy way without being passive and being walked all over? Well, one, why are you being passive? And two, why are you being walked all over? Why are you accepting abusive behaviors? I mean, there's no place for that whatsoever. That should be over. That should be ended. And if he's not ending that, if he is, you know, treating you in a poor way that way, it's not so much about, okay, I'm going to treat him that way too. Instead, it is where are your boundaries? I think we have a course on boundaries to help you to be able to say, no, we're not doing this any longer. Good, Tammy, I see you're ready to jump in.
Well, no, I was gonna go look for a, but I can't find it quick.
Okay.
But yeah, it is boundaries, and I was going with the first part. I don't want to be like this, and And, internal boundaries are, I am not going to betray myself. And so I don't want to be that person. Then what do I need to do to take care of me? Regulation is key. And we talk about this all the time in lots of webinars about, the things to do to self-regulate. You can email me because I was writing it so often. I created a little list so I can copy and paste, some
Mm,
options for you to do in the moment, or but journaling. Debbie McCrae talks, I call her the queen of healthy boundaries.
mm,
She is really good at this stuff, including internal boundaries. But she had an anger journal, and like she had a separate journal for anger, so that would be this is where I'm going to put all
oh,
that stuff. And then I have my other journal of what I'm going to do, and like the thing, other stuff. But when it was those angry, vengeful feelings, that would
mm,
go in this, so that I have a place to deposit that, so
right.
I'm not hanging on to it, but I'm also not venting it. Oh, I did some EMDR. I had an issue with anger, and it was a wound. And anytime that wound got poked, it was like this massive energy of anger. I called it my white hot rage. And I would have to work so hard on holding it down because I didn't want to scorch the earth, because that's what it felt like. And so, but I didn't want to be that person. And so then I learned, to do some tools, anyway. So there are ways you can learn to navigate that, so that you go, yeah, I'm angry as all get out, and deservedly, but I'm going to choose to hold myself at this. But I'm with Dr. Eddie. It is not, that we accept any abuse, and again, that 4-part talking boundary is, I love it. It's brilliant. Yeah. And the story I'm
Mm,
telling myself is right now that you're emotionally venting and being abused. So I'm going to choose to take care of me. I'm going to go over here, da 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 da, whatever. And it doesn't even have
right.
to be you raise your voice. You just go, nope, no, I'm out of here, and I'll come back and check on you. And I'm not abandoning you. I'm going to go do this. And you know what? Talking about it in advance, so that you go, the next time this happens, because well, the next time this happens, this is
Mhm.
what I'm going to choose to do. So I'm telling you in advance what I'm going to do the next time this happens. And it sounds so easy, and it's not. But the more you
Yeah,
practice that and have that going, like, I choose me, I will not betray me. Put post notes in the bathroom mirror, whatever you need to do. I'm choosing not to participate in that just because his behaviors aren't they're not acceptable, and I don't have to accept
right.
them.
Exactly. Okay. I never knew that you were an angry person.
I live well.
Can't
Oh, no,
imagine
no,
you
no,
being
no,
very
no.
angry.
It was, if I felt abandoned, and it
Oh,
took me some work, but as soon like it would happen, I would feel abandoned. I didn't know it, but I
yeah.
would go, and I won't tell stories because we don't have time, but
Okay.
like it was like one person was trying to walk up to me. I had a motorcycle. I used to ride motorcycle. I had a motorcycle helmet on, and I just went, and she turned and walked away. And I was like, that was a good, I kept my helmet down. I was like, just you sit here until you can be calm, because again, scorched the earth. It was horrible. I hated it, and I didn't have tools. Now I
But
do.
see that the thing, what you just talked about, she just went there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is what goes on with people who deal, again, with addictions, that because of our emotional wounds, we just go someplace.
Yeah.
And the one thing that
Split second.
I talk to my clients all the time about, if we have to battle through that. That's why when you see them start to withdraw, when you see them, he'll go into his man cave, whatever it is. And sometimes, and I had a client whose wife told me she does this a couple weeks ago. She goes, "You know what I started doing?" She goes, "It was really hard, but I did it." I walk up to him and I say, "Look, I know you're struggling right now, but I want to let you know I'm here. I love you, and let's hug." And she'd sit
Oh,
there and she would hold him and hold him and hold him, and he's trying to like pull away. And she goes, "No, a little bit more." And she goes, "Okay, go ahead, you go off." And she leaves. And
wow.
boom, he'd be back in 10 minutes. He's out of that thing, and he is, because it was the same thing, similar to rejection, abandonment, not good enough. And now somebody was saying, "No, you are." I know, and ladies, and even guys who are dealing with this, I know it sounds so crazy. And I know, and I'm not asking you to put more effort into anything, because some of these guys, you don't put your arms around them, be able to serve that out there, your arms around them. All right. But those who are working, those who really are trying, and they're going to mess up. They are going to mess up. And just point it out. You know what? That hurt. That
Mhm.
hurt. I hope that you'll be able to think about it and maybe come back to me. And if they don't get defensive and they go and they do, I guarantee you they'll be coming back real fast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Okay. So I think we've got time for one more.
Okay?
Um, how much of this do you think could simply be learned or bad behaviors that were not being modeled by parents? My husband stopped with zero compulsion, no consequences until he was caught, but his upbringing was terrible.
Well, yeah, that's part of what we've been talking about here.
Mhm.
This whole idea that a lot of it is, it's not so much that it's learned behavior, it's the idea that nobody teaches you the right behaviors. Yeah, do we sometimes see bad behavior? Do we see a father who, is very dismissive of his wife, or, is someone who puts her down all the time? Yeah, I've had many clients who have seen that. I will say this though, not very many of them have turned around and been that way with their wives, right? But so they don't really pick that up. I think it's more along the lines of the behavior we didn't get that we struggle with or we should have gotten versus those that we saw. Although there is a place for that too.
So I don't think we've got, because we have 1 minute, so I don't think we've got time for another question. So any
No, I
final
think we're
thoughts
done.
on this? Yeah.
No, I think there was a lot of stuff we covered off on today. I hope that people got a lot out of it. Um, again, maybe if they have questions, they could send them over to
Come back
you.
next week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
come back. That's right. Come back next
Yeah.
week,
Come back
and
next
we'll do
week.
that then.
I can't wait to see you in a week. All right. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone. Take
All right.
care. Bye
Bye.
bye.